Hi, welcome back to the Enochian Book Club. And tonight we'll continue with the Rhythm of Seven series. And tonight we're session 5, I also call it episode 5. And we'll be continuing with the Book of Jubilee full documentary. And this will be the third installment. And there are two more coming up to finish that video. So today is June 26, 2025. I'm your host, Yoko, and here's your other host, LG. Here you go, LG.
Great. Thank you, Yoko. And good evening, everybody. Great to see everybody back here again. We'll go ahead and start with the Lord's Prayer. So if everybody wants to just take a minute and bow their heads. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right. So we are back. Yep. And as you said, Yoko, this is session 5, and it's actually the third episode of this video that we're currently doing. We're picking up right at the hour mark, and we'll be listening to right at the hour and 29-minute mark. And we will talk on the other side. We'll get caught up on the video. We'll get caught up on anything we want to talk about the timeline, make a couple of announcements. And so I'm looking forward to it. Y'all jot down any questions that come up during the video, any discrepancies. Again, we are, let's say, mature enough in our study of this series that we can kind of reconcile through some of those gaps, or sometimes people misspeak. So if you pick up anything that's just not hitting quite right, jot it down, and we'll walk it out, and we'll work through it on the other side. So I'll see y'all then.
The spot where he sleeps will one day host a temple. The God who speaks from the ladder's top will make covenants with his children's children, and the angels climbing up and down will continue their endless work, keeping time, marking days, and ensuring that heaven's will becomes earth's reality. Bethel becomes not just a place of worship, but a timestamp in the grand chronicle of creation. Dinah and the Blood Pact. The tale of Dinah differs greatly in the Book of Jubilees from what you might remember in Genesis. Where the Bible offers a tragic story of violation and revenge, Jubilees transforms it into something else entirely, a defense of tribal purity and divine justice. The story begins simply enough. Jacob's daughter Dinah visits the women of Shechem, a nearby city. There, the prince sees her, desires her, and takes her. What follows in Genesis reads like a sad tale of human passion and revenge. But Jubilees reshapes this narrative into a cosmic drama about keeping bloodlines pure and fulfilling heaven's decrees. In Genesis, Jacob's sons trick the men of Shechem into getting circumcised, then attack while they recover. It's a troubling tale of deception and excessive force. But Jubilees frames their actions as righteous, even holy. The text states firmly, "For this deed, they are inscribed for blessing in the heavenly tablets." Why such praise for what seems like a brutal massacre? Because Jubilees views intermarriage as a grave sin against the cosmic order. The book claims that long before this event, Noah had divided the world among his sons, assigning each to their proper place. The Shechemites belonged to Shem's portion, but Canaan, cursed earlier, had wrongfully settled there. Their very presence violated heaven's boundaries. Dinah's brothers become agents of divine justice, not just vengeful siblings. Their violence restores a boundary that should never have been crossed. What's more, Jubilees tells us the exact date of this event. The timing itself matters, aligning with heavenly patterns established at creation. The timing itself matters, aligning with heavenly patterns established at creation. The angel narrating to Moses explains that this bloodshed serves as warning for all Israel's future. Any who marry outside the chosen line face divine punishment. The brothers didn't overreact. They fulfilled an eternal law written before time began. Simeon and Levi, often criticized in other Jewish texts, receive special praise in Jubilees. Their names are recorded for blessing in the heavenly tablets, those same cosmic ledgers that track every moral choice, every birth and death, every keeping or breaking of divine law. Even Jacob's initial anger at his sons gets reframed. His fear of retaliation from neighboring tribes becomes unnecessary worry, for heaven itself shields them after their righteous act. Angels prevent any revenge against Jacob's family, keeping them safe as they journey away from Shechem. Blood purity becomes central to Jubilee's message here. The mixing of chosen and unchosen seed threatens the entire divine plan. Jacob's line must remain separate, untouched by outside influence. The heavenly tablets demand it, the angels enforce it, and the patriarchs must honor it. What Genesis presents as a complex human tragedy, Jubilees transforms into a simple morality tale about keeping boundaries firmly in place. Time, space, blood, and law all align in this moment of violence. For readers of Jubilees, Dinah's story isn't about victimhood or vengeance, but about maintaining the cosmic order that governs all things. The blood spilled at Shechem writes another entry in heaven's eternal record. Joseph sold, timeline preserved. The story of Joseph marks one of the Bible's most beloved tales, a younger brother sold by jealous siblings only to rise from slavery to glory. But in Jubilees, this familiar narrative takes on new significance, becoming another proof that heaven's timetable cannot be disrupted, even by human cruelty. Joseph's tale begins as it does in Genesis. The favored son receives a special coat from his father. He dreams of future greatness. His brothers grow envious. But Jubilees adds crucial details about timing that Genesis leaves out. When the brothers plot against Joseph, they do so on the exact day that their father Jacob mourns the anniversary of his mother's death. This isn't random coincidence, but meaningful symmetry. One grief echoes another across generations, all recorded in heaven's perfect ledger. The brothers strip Joseph of his coat and cast him into a pit. In Genesis, this act stems purely from human emotion, jealousy, resentment, rivalry, but Jubilees reveals unseen forces at work. Mastema, the accuser, seizes this moment to attack Jacob's faith. The evil one whispers to the brothers, inflaming their hatred beyond natural bounds. Yet what seems like a victory for dark powers actually advances heaven's plan. Joseph must go to Egypt. He must rise to power there. He must save his family from famine. All this stands written in the heavenly tablets long before Joseph draws his first breath. When the Midianite merchants pull Joseph from the pit and carry him toward Egypt, they follow a path marked out before time began. What looks like tragedy serves a greater purpose. The brothers believe they've changed their family's story, but they've merely played their assigned parts in a vast cosmic drama. Jubilees traces the precise timing of Joseph's journey. It counts the days between his departure from Canaan and his rise in Pharaoh's court. Nothing happens too early or too late. Even in foreign lands far from sacred spaces, heaven's clock ticks with perfect precision. Jacob's grief receives special attention in Jubilees. The father puts on sackcloth, mourning his lost son with bitter tears. But the text reveals something Genesis doesn't. Angels watch this suffering, recording each moment of sorrow. Jacob's pain isn't meaningless but measured, adding to the grand account that heaven keeps of human life. The brothers' deception, dipping Joseph's coat in goat's blood and presenting it to their father, becomes more than family trickery in Jubilees. It represents a momentary victory for Mastema, who delights in falsehood. Yet even this deception serves the greater plan, pushing events toward their appointed end. Joseph's descent into slavery, his false imprisonment, his gift for dream interpretation, all unfold according to heaven's blueprint. What seems like chance encounters and lucky breaks are actually divine appointments, timed to the day and hour. Jubilees reminds us that Egypt itself had been assigned to Ham's descendants during Noah's division of the earth. Joseph's presence there represents a temporary crossing of boundaries that heaven established. Yet this boundary crossing serves a purpose, preparing for the greater exodus to come. In prison, Joseph doesn't merely endure, he witnesses. His suffering becomes testimony. And all the while, angels mark his path, measuring his steps against the eternal schedule set before creation. Not a moment is wasted, not a tear falls uncounted. The heavenly scribes record it all in their perfect books. The Joseph cycle ends, the bondage begins. The famine strikes just as Joseph predicted, 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of lack. But Jubilees sees more than natural disaster in this pattern. It reveals divine precision, a measured judgment delivered on schedule. Joseph stands ready, having filled Egypt's storehouses during the good years. Now, as hunger spreads across lands, his brothers journey south seeking food. The reunion unfolds much as Genesis tells it. Joseph recognizes them while remaining unknown himself. He tests them, accuses them, finally reveals himself with tears and embraces. Jubilees adds something crucial to this familiar tale: exact dates. The text tracks precisely when Jacob hears about Joseph being alive, when he begins his journey to Egypt, when he crosses each boundary along the way. Every movement aligns with patterns established at creation, fulfilling promises made to Abraham generations earlier. When Jacob arrives in Egypt, Pharaoh welcomes him warmly. But Jubilees reveals what Genesis merely hints at. This welcome marks the beginning of a divine test. Egypt isn't meant to be Israel's home, but a temporary shelter, a proving ground. The heavenly tablets already record the exact span of their stay, the suffering they'll endure, and the mighty deliverance to come. Joseph settles his family in Goshen, giving them the best of the land. They prosper and multiply, fulfilling God's command to be fruitful. Yet Jubilees warns that this prosperity carries danger. With comfort comes the risk of forgetting who they are, of adopting Egyptian ways and Egyptian gods. As Joseph ages, Jubilees shows him growing concerned about this very issue. But before dying, he gathers his brothers and makes them swear an oath they must remember their homeland. They must carry his bones back to Canaan when they eventually return. This isn't just family sentiment, but cosmic necessity. Joseph belongs to Promised Land, not Egyptian soil. After Joseph's death, a shift occurs that Genesis describes briefly, but Jubilees expands into a spiritual crisis. A new Pharaoh arises who didn't know Joseph. This isn't just political change, but cosmic conflict. The new ruler serves other gods, follows different rhythms. He disrupts the careful balance Joseph maintained between Hebrew identity and Egyptian residency. Gradually, through measured steps recorded in heaven's perfect accounts, the Egyptians begin to fear their Hebrew guests. What starts as suspicion grows into policy. What begins as caution becomes cruelty. Slavery doesn't happen overnight, but unfolds across precisely tracked years. When Pharaoh orders Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile, Jubilees sees more than human evil at work. Mastema, heaven's accuser, stands behind this decree. The dark angel who once whispered to Joseph's brothers now whispers to Egypt's king. Each drowned child marks another assault on Abraham's promised lineage. Yet even in this darkness, heaven's timetable remains unbroken. The suffering has limits, the bondage an appointed end. Moses' birth doesn't happen by chance, but right on schedule, marked in the heavenly tablets before creation. The deliverer arrives exactly when heaven ordains, not a day sooner or later. Jubilees reveals that angels watch over the chosen people even in their misery. They count the lashes of Egyptian whips. They record each Hebrew tear. They measure the growing cry that will soon reach heaven's throne and trigger the greatest liberation story ever told. The bondage intensifies, but the divine clock keeps perfect time. Moses vs. Mastema. The Book of Jubilees rewrites the familiar Exodus story with a startling addition. Behind Pharaoh's stubbornness stands Mastema, heaven's accuser, fighting a battle that spans both worlds. Moses grows up in Pharaoh's house, then flees after killing an Egyptian. When he returns to Egypt years later, he carries heaven's authority. But Jubilees reveals something Genesis doesn't. Mastema himself stands ready to oppose him. When Moses first approaches Pharaoh demanding freedom for the Hebrews, the king refuses, as we expect. But Jubilees shows us why. Mastema strengthens his resolve, hardens his heart beyond normal human stubbornness. This isn't just political resistance, but cosmic warfare. The plagues begin, but Jubilees describes them differently than Exodus does. Each plague isn't just a natural disaster, but an angelic assault targeting specific Egyptian gods and the dark powers behind them. Blood fills the Nile, not just as warning to Pharaoh, but as direct attack on Egypt's river deities. When Moses turns his staff into a snake that devours the magician's serpents, Jubilees sees more than clever trickery. Heaven directly challenges Mastema's magic, proving divine power superior to dark arts. The Egyptian magicians don't merely fail, they serve the wrong master. Mastema's response grows desperate. He teaches the Egyptian sorcerers how to mimic some plagues, hoping to convince Pharaoh that Moses wields no special power. For a brief moment, it works. Pharaoh sees blood and frogs created by his own magicians and hardens his heart further. But as the plagues intensify, Mastema's magic fails. The text reveals that heaven places limits on what the accuser can do. He cannot create lice or any smaller creature. His power stops where true creation begins. The magicians themselves admit defeat. This is the finger of God. The battle escalates with each refusal. Flies, cattle disease, boils, each plague targets a different Egyptian deity, stripping away Mastema's borrowed authority. The darkness that falls over Egypt represents more than lack of light. It symbolizes the accuser's fading influence. When the final plague approaches, death for the firstborn, Jubilees shows us something remarkable. Mastema himself approaches death for the firstborn, Jubilees shows us something remarkable. Mastema himself becomes the destroyer, but only under heaven's strict control. The accuser who sought to destroy Israel becomes the unwilling agent of Egypt's judgment. The very power that fought against Moses must now serve heaven's purpose. The Passover receives special attention in Jubilees. The blood on doorposts isn't just a sign for a passing angel, but a binding restraint on Mastema himself. He cannot enter where this blood marks the way. His power breaks against this simple protection. As the Hebrews prepare to leave Egypt, Mastema makes one final attempt to keep them enslaved. He urges Pharaoh to pursue them even after agreeing to their release. The accuser knows what's coming. His defeat at the Red Sea will echo across generations. When the waters part for Israel and close over Egypt's chariots, Jubilees sees more than natural wonder. The sea itself becomes a battlefield between cosmic forces. Angels drive back waters while Mastema drives forward Egypt's troops. Heaven wins this contest decisively. The drowning of Pharaoh's army doesn't just end the pursuit, it breaks Mastema's power over Israel for a season. The accuser retreats, wounded but not destroyed. He will return to test them in the wilderness, but his authority has suffered a crushing blow. Moses stands victorious, but Jubilees makes clear his victory belongs to heaven's perfect timing. Each plague, each confrontation, each miracle happened exactly when the heavenly tablets decreed it should. Not even Mastema could disrupt the divine schedule. The Exodus begins right on heaven's perfect clock. The Exodus and the covenant clock. The darkness lifts. Dawn breaks over the desert as thousands of Hebrew families stand at the edge of Egypt, their backs to generations of bondage. The timing is perfect. It must be. This moment was written in heaven long before any human walked the earth. For the Book of Jubilees, the Exodus isn't just a historical event. It's a cosmic appointment kept with divine precision. The angel tells Moses that this day was marked in the heavenly calendar from the beginning of creation. The 14th day of the first month, the day when freedom would burst forth like the spring sun. Picture the scene. The Israelites had been told to slaughter lambs at twilight, marking their doorposts with blood. They ate in haste, sandals on feet, staffs in hand. But Jubilees adds a detail Genesis doesn't share. Angels stood watch that night, not just passing over homes, but actively guarding them. The destroyer wasn't merely a plague or natural force, but Mastema's agents seeking any crack in the divine protection. And the Lord did everything according to his word, the angel tells Moses. Every plague, every warning, every moment of the escape, all unfolded according to a timetable set before time began. The Egyptians didn't just face natural disasters, they faced heaven's armies moving with clockwork certainty. The timing matters deeply to the author of Jubilees. The precise day and hour of freedom wasn't random chance or lucky escape. It was the fulfillment of a promise made to Abraham 430 years earlier. To the day. Heaven runs on time. When the Israelites reach the sea, Moses raises his staff. Jubilees describes this moment differently than Exodus does. Here, the sea doesn't just part through divine power. It returns to its original created boundaries. Creation itself makes way for the divine plan. Pharaoh's army drowns not simply through natural forces, but because they've violated sacred time. They've opposed the divine timeline. The sea closing over them isn't just water returning, but time itself crushing those who tried to stand against its flow. The newly freed slaves sing on the shore, but Jubilees adds that angels join them, heavenly voices blending with human ones. Freedom rings across dimensions. The first Passover isn't just remembered, it's eternally present in heaven's courts. And now, as they journey towards Sinai, Jubilees shows us something profound. Each camp, each water stop, each moment of testing in the wilderness, all happen in perfect alignment with heavenly patterns. The manna doesn't fall randomly. It appears precisely when the heavenly storehouses open according to their appointed times. When they reach the mountain, Moses ascends not just to receive law, but to learn how earth's clock syncs with heaven's. The first lesson isn't "thou shalt not," but "here is when." The feast days, the Sabbaths, the years of Jubilee, all are taught as ways to align human life with cosmic rhythms. Moses learns that Passover isn't just about remembering freedom. It's about participating in freedom that exists eternally in heaven. Each time the feast is properly observed, heaven and earth align. The barriers thin. But each time it's forgotten or its timing changed, creation itself shudders. The covenant at Sinai then becomes more than rules. It becomes a way of moving through time in harmony with divine purpose. And the greatest sin isn't just breaking a command, it's breaking time itself. Sinai, the real one. The mountain trembles, smoke rises, lightning flashes across stone peaks as Moses climbs higher, leaving the camp behind. But what happens next is where Jubilees parts ways with the familiar Bible story. On Sinai, Moses doesn't just receive laws carved in stone. He receives the secret history of time itself. The angel of the presence, one of heaven's highest ministers, reveals to Moses that what he's about to learn was written long before humans existed. "I will tell you," the angel says, "from the beginning of creation until my sanctuary is built among you for all eternity." This is Sinai's true purpose, not just law-giving, but time-teaching. Moses learns that before anything was made, God created the laws of heaven, including the perfect calendar of 364 days. This number matters deeply in Jubilees. It's perfectly divisible by 7, meaning each date falls on the same day of the week, year after year. No drift, no confusion, no human adjustment needed. The angel shows Moses the heavenly tablets, not just commandments, but the entire script of history written before time began. Every feast day, every appointed time was established before the first human drew breath. The sun, moon, and stars were positioned not just for light, but as the cosmic clock's moving hands. As lightning plays across the mountain face, Moses learns that Adam knew these laws. Enoch recorded them. Noah preserved them through the flood. But time and again, humans drift from heaven's perfect timing. They follow the changing moon instead of the steady sun. They add days where none should exist. They celebrate at the wrong times, and creation groans. The tablets shown to Moses aren't just rules, they're reality's blueprint. The angel explains how each law connects to events in heaven. The Sabbath mirrors eternal rest, Passover echoes eternal freedom, the Day of Atonement reflects cosmic cleansing. These aren't just days to note, but moments when human experience can touch divine reality. What might seem like dry details in Jubilees, endless dates and times, are actually its beating heart. The angel wants Moses to understand that getting the calendar right isn't just about scheduling. It's about harmony with creation's deepest patterns. While the people wait below, Moses learns that sin isn't just about actions, but about timing. To eat the wrong food is bad, but to eat the right food at the wrong time is cosmic rebellion. To work is good, but to work on Sabbath tears the fabric between worlds. The angel explains that this is why Israel was chosen, not just to follow rules, but to keep time, to be the nation that aligns earth with heaven through perfectly timed observances. Their feasts and fasts aren't just cultural markers, but cosmic tuning forks, bringing creation back into harmony. Moses trembles as he understands the weight of this knowledge. Every date recorded in Jubilees, and there are hundreds, matters because each is a moment when heaven and earth can align, when humans can step briefly into divine patterns. The real revelation at Sinai, according to Jubilees, isn't just morality, but meaning. Not just how to behave, but how to belong in time itself. The law isn't burdensome, but liberating. It lets humans move in rhythm with angels, participate in time as heaven experiences it. As Moses prepares to descend, the angel tells him one more truth. These tablets, this heavenly calendar, will be opposed. Nations will create their own times. Even some of Israel will stray. But those who keep heaven's clock will never truly be lost. They will always have a path back to divine harmony. Why Jubilees loves the law. Most people think of laws as restrictions, lines drawn that we shouldn't cross, but Jubilees sees them differently. Here, laws aren't walls, but windows, openings through which divine light pours. The angel speaking to Moses describes each command not as a burden, but as a gift. Each rule connects to a moment in cosmic history, a thread woven into creation's tapestry. These aren't random rules, but revelations of how reality works at its deepest level. Take the Sabbath. In Jubilees, it's not just a day off. It's the day when humans can taste what angels experience eternally. The angel tells Moses that even in heaven, the highest powers observe Sabbath. It's not that they need rest. They need harmony. The seventh day isn't arbitrary, but essential to creation's rhythm. God blessed the seventh day alone, the angel says. All holy things are blessed and hallowed on this day. When humans honor Sabbath, they step into alignment with powers they can barely comprehend. The food laws might seem strange to modern readers. Don't eat this, don't touch that. But Jubilees frames them as protection, not restriction. The angel explains that these foods connect to spiritual forces. Some strengthen the human spirit, others invite corruption. The laws aren't about health, but about spiritual integrity. Sexual regulations in Jubilees aren't just moral codes, but reflections of heavenly order. The angel reveals that violations of these boundaries don't just harm humans, but tear at creation's fabric. When Israel follows these laws, they're not just being good, they're participating in cosmic repair. Even stranger rules make sense in this light. The command to cover nakedness when relieving oneself. In Jubilees, this isn't about modesty, but about maintaining boundaries between holy and common. Angels shield their eyes in heaven's most sacred spaces. Humans mirror this pattern on earth. For the author of Jubilees, the law's beauty lies in its perfect timing. Each command has its moment. Circumcision on the 8th day, harvest offerings at precise times, festivals when the sun reaches certain positions. These aren't just details, they're doorways to participation in eternal patterns. The law in Jubilees differs from other Jewish texts of the time. Here, laws aren't open to interpretation or adaptation. They're fixed as creation itself. The angel tells Moses that these commands existed before humans and will outlast them. They aren't cultural artifacts, but cosmic constants. This explains Jubilees' most striking feature, its obsession with getting things exactly right. The wrong day, the wrong ritual, the wrong boundaries matter because they break alignment with heaven's perfect order. Sin isn't just about hurting others, but about disrupting harmony between realms. Moses learns that the law isn't a test of obedience, but an invitation to belonging. By living according to heaven's rhythms, humans can step partially into eternity, experiencing time as angels do, not as a line rushing forward, but as a dance cycling through perfect patterns. The greatest gift of the law, according to Jubilees, is that it makes humans more than mortal. By following heaven's time, they participate in something death cannot touch. Their lives are echoes of eternal patterns, their smallest actions rippling across dimensions. And so the laws are recorded not as burdens, but as love letters from heaven, instructions for how to live in time while touching eternity. Feast days, blood, and timing. The sun slips below the horizon, the first stars appear, a new month begins, but which month? According to what calendar? For most ancient people, these might seem like simple questions, but for the author of Jubilees, they're matters of cosmic importance. The angel explains to Moses that feast days aren't just celebrations. They're moments when the veil between heaven and earth grows thin. When humans celebrate at the right time, they briefly step into harmony with angelic rhythms, but celebrate on the wrong day, and the moment's power is lost. Passover begins the sacred year. The angel describes how this feast doesn't just commemorate freedom, but actively channels its power. When families gather on the 14th day of the first month, not the 13th, not the 15th, they align with the moment when liberation's energy flows most strongly from heaven to earth. The timing must be precise. Jubilees insists on a 364-day solar year, not the lunar calendar many Jewish communities would later adopt. The angel warns Moses that following the moon leads to drift, to celebration on the wrong days, to cosmic misalignment. They will disturb the days, the angel says, and make a day of testimony something worthless and a profane day a feast. This isn't just calendar confusion, it's spiritual disaster. Blood plays a central role in these precisely timed feasts, not because heaven demands sacrifice, but because blood carries life's essence. When properly offered at the right moment, it becomes a conduit between worlds. The angel describes how the blood placed on doorposts at Passover forms an actual barrier against destructive forces. The Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, receives special attention. The angel tells Moses that this isn't just about forgiveness, but about cosmic cleansing. On this day, heaven's courts are most accessible. Prayers rise more directly, but pray on the wrong day, and those prayers find closed gates. Tabernacles, the Feast of Booths, connects humans to their wandering ancestors. But more importantly, it connects them to the early days of creation, when boundaries between heaven and earth were newer and thinner. Building temporary shelters isn't symbolic, it's participatory.
Hi, I'm Burke, a small business insurance expert with Byberk.
What's a Byberk?
Byberk isn't a thing.
Building temporary shelters isn't symbolic, it's participatory. Humans briefly live as Adam did, more directly under heaven's gaze. First fruits, Pentecost, new moons, each feast creates a specific bridge between worlds, but only when observed at the exact right time. Jubilees treats these moments as physical realities, not just cultural memories. The angel warns Moses about a future problem. Some will follow a lunar calendar of 354 days. This seems small, just 10 days difference per year, but these errors accumulate. Feasts drift through seasons, alignments break, heaven's gates open, but no one stands ready to walk through. For the author of Jubilees, these calendar disputes aren't academic debates, but spiritual warfare. The forces opposing God's order, led by Mastema, actively work to confuse the times and seasons. When Israel follows the wrong calendar, they unknowingly serve confusion's prince. This explains Jubilee's harsh language about calendar keepers who forget the right timing. They aren't just making mistakes, they're breaking the covenant at its core. True faithfulness isn't just about what you do, but when you do it. Blood, timing, and covenant twine together in Jubilee's understanding of feast days. These aren't just holidays, but holy days, moments when eternity touches time, when human celebration harmonizes with angelic worship, when the barriers between worlds grow momentarily thin. And so the feasts become more than memory. They become medicine for a broken world, realigning creation with Creator through the power of perfect timing. Mastema's final tricks. While Moses receives heaven's perfect calendar on the mountain, darkness gathers below. The angel reveals to him that Mastema, heaven's great accuser, has not been idle. As divine order is being explained above, chaos is being sown below. Jubilees offers a unique vision of spiritual warfare.
All right, everybody, we're back.
Thank you, LG.
You're welcome. Hey, Pamela, welcome.
Hello, everyone. So good to hear your voices, and I enjoy.
Nice to hear your voice, too.
Hey, Yoko.
Hey, Pam.
You know, now that we were so attuned to his dates or Jubilee counts and whether they were going to be correct or not, he was quite elusive this half hour. He really didn't give any. Did you notice that, Hope? Oh, we lost. Oh no, there you are.
I did notice that he wasn't giving any, um, this was the whatever Jubilee. This time I was kind of listening directly for that, but he sure did give a lot of information, covered a lot of ground, and several Jubilees in one session. And it was kind of like drinking from a fire hydrant for me. I was writing so much, but I thought it was great.
Good. Yep. Me too. Well, how you want to do this, Yoko? Do y'all want to go around? Does anybody want to share any thoughts, particularly that they had about any parts, or do you want me to try to? Ooh, that was a lot. I can try. I'll do my best if you want me to, but we can make it go however y'all want.
Yeah, I'd like you to do the recap. Would be great.
Okay, this is going to be a difficult one. But, when we ended last week, it was Bethel. We had ended with Jacob's ladder and Bethel. And it started right there because I kind of overlapped a little bit from where I stopped, but I'm glad that it did because now I know that there's probably several Bethels. I know there's a Bethel in Tennessee, and I'm sure there's some in the other countries. But did you know there's a Bethel in Alaska, right where the land of Jesus would have been at the Bering Strait and all of that? Is that Jacob's Bethel? Does anyone know? Or is it more like a Bethlehem that we're getting towards with Jacob? Is it more of the Middle Eastern? I don't know. Anyway, I'll keep going. And I never knew all of that about Dinah. I mean, I guess I knew Dinah was Jacob's daughter, but I've never heard it gone into that. So he talked about that. He talked about Dinah and the blood pact, and this was a cosmic drama, and that it was a grave sin because they were not to intermarry. Here we are with the seed war, the same thing that's been going on, mixing the seed, and Jacob's line must remain pure. So her brothers that manifested all of this bloodshed, um, Simeon and Levi, it was presented that they were right to do that. And woo, they were savage. They tricked all of the other people, their enemies. They tricked them into getting circumcisions, and then while they were recovering is when they launched their attack. And I think that was in a place called what, Shechem, something like that. But that was quite interesting. And then he went straight from that into Joseph. And so that was, I think, a story that we're more familiar with. And, it, Joseph being uh, receiving the dreams and then being sold into slavery. And then we've got Egypt. And that, of course, that goes back to Ham again. It goes back to what we were talking about last week, where Ham started encroaching on Shem's land assignment. And then that got Egypt all up in a roar, and so this was assigned cosmic parts, and that it was a kind of a divine test. And Joseph and his family had located to Goshen. And then there was the new Pharaoh that was going to enslave all of the Hebrew people. And that's where Moses enters the scene because of the plagues, and all of these cries reached heaven. And Mastema, which sounds a lot like master, by the way. Mastema, Mastema, master, master. Goes back to slaves. And but this was a different take on all of those plagues, that they were actually targeting the dark arts, the dark little g gods, and that these deities were undermining Moses's power, and Mastema was using counterfeit through magicians to create some of these plagues to downplay that it was, a divine act and a divine power that was coming through Moses. So we went there for the defeat at the Red Sea and the Exodus, and then that's where he defined again the 14th day of the first month. It talked about the timetable and clockwork of certainty. He did give a date there that this all happened exactly 430 years later, and I did not write down what it was that had happened earlier, but it had, of course, something to do with that. I loved this saying, freedom rings across dimensions, because when this happened, the parting of the Red Sea and the Pharaoh's army and all of that, that they could hear singing and celebration, and it was both Moses and all of his, we'll call them a congregation, but that the angels were actually singing too. So here being the week before 4th of July, I just thought that was kind of a really cool little tagline, freedom rings across dimensions. Talks about Moses going up on Mount Sinai, and that Jubilees actually has a whole second prong of the reason. Yes, there were the tablets, but that it was actually for Moses to be given the secrets of time itself, and how we're to belong in time itself. Mentioned a couple of the Sabbath meanings. That's something we're honing in on, but one was rest, one was freedom, one was atonement. Said that nations will create their own timetables. Um, Food connects spiritually when it's consumed and or not consumed. Boundaries, they have talked about this before, but boundaries between the common things and the holy things. They even talked about how you cover yourself when you go to the restroom, and some different personal things like that. And it's not so much about um, the culture or shame or not shame, but it's about keeping that boundary between what is common and what is holy. And all of this has been about that boundary, and not to have a disruption between the realms. And he said that it was love letters from heaven is basically what Moses received on Mount Sinai, love letters from heaven, and strong, strong warnings of time drift. Um, and they said that a little bit about the sacrifices, which always kind of makes me clench up, but blood is a conduit between worlds. So that was a strong statement when you know everything that we know. And then he warned Moses that in the future there would be an error of 10 days in the timekeeping. And that's just kind of where he ended, with a little bit about the holy feast. And that's it. That's my wrap up. Or not my wrap up, my rundown.
I don't know how you do it. That's great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, LG. I don't know how you do it either. I agree with Yoko. I one thing I would just add to that last thing you said about the blood, we do get kind of our antenna goes up when we talk about that. But I thought it was interesting that he said that the blood carries life's essence, our DNA. I just thought that was very significant because that was what they were told to paint over the doorposts of the homes. And isn't it amazing that man was made in the image of God, and God breathed into Adam the breath of life and made him a living soul. And to put the human DNA across the doorpost, I know it represents Christ's blood, but that just having life's essence over the doorpost, that just kind of jumped off the page at me.
Wow, you always say something that just like rocks me. Yes. So I never was thinking about the actual DNA in the blood, and then how what we were talking about, it being the conduit, the life is in the blood, the essence is in the blood, and so is the DNA, the little cross, the Yahweh signature. But in this uh, video tonight, he talked about how when that was happening, the Passover, that there were good angels protecting, but that there were also dark angels waiting to slip through any cracks that had not been protected. And so, if life is in the blood and the essence is in the blood, for lack of a better word, I thought of frequency. So that blood that was put over those doorways had a frequency, and those dark angels could not approach that frequency, which was the protection. And I just now thought about that when you thought about that.
Yeah, I thought it was a very significant part of the video tonight. And he talked about cosmic cleansing through the blood. And that's what Christ did at the cross, was for our sins, was the cleansing. But the cosmic cleansing that was represented over when Moses had them, that was the final plague, was the death of the firstborn. But that to me was just so moving. And the way he kind of drew all that together was really significant for me. That and also the Moses 10 Commandments. I'd never seen him in this light before, but he talked about how Jubilees saw this very different from the biblical account when Moses went up on the mountain, and that God gave him, he gave him the commandments for the people of Israel, not so much as a bunch of rules to follow, but as an invitation to join. Let's see, I wrote it down. It was a divine invitation for mankind, or for the Israelites whom God had chosen out of all the other people as a pure generation to stay, for Jacob, for Israel to stay pure and to keep that. That's why the Dinah story was so important, was keeping that pure. But God, through Moses, gave him those 10 commandments and all the other commandments that they received over time, was an invitation to join heaven's rhythm and heaven's preordained schedule. And all of those commandments, if you think about it, like the first one, honor the Lord your God, that you're to put him first, keep him holy. That's what the angels do night and day. They sing, holy, holy, holy is the Lord. And in God's economy, in his kingdom that he created in heaven, He created angels, myriads and myriads of angels, just to sing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord." And that first commandment calls calls us into that rhythm of singing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord." And if you look at every single one of those commandments, like if you take "don't kill," well, that is entering God's putting life as so important. He created man in his own image. And so he says, "Don't murder." And every one of the commandments, if we studied them, we would see something about the rhythm of heaven and the rhythm of who God is. And we would get to join for that moment. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. That's what God ordained. He blessed it. We could take each one, but I just thought that was so significant that he said it was an invitation to join in heaven's rhythm.
Exactly. And I think that that's why we're so moved to try to find out when it is, what it is, where we're at, so we can get on the right rhythm. That's that intrinsic, that DNA that's in the blood that is calling us to want to do that now that we know. All right. Well, did anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up about it before we start moving along, maybe to the timeline or something else? Well, first of all, does anyone want to talk about, because we are talking about land assignments, we're talking about bloodlines. Um, I've I posted two videos from Deep Bible Stories. They have made me come to an understanding of uh, exactly what's going on with Israel, Iran, and I even have an additional theory about President Trump in that whole thing. Does anybody care to talk about that for a minute, maybe? Are y'all interested in that?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, well, so it's these two videos, and I'll move them to the wall again. So this is not me. This is just me telling you what they said in these videos. Um, so it goes back, of course, all the way to Ham and Shem and the land assignments. And then we come to Abraham. And then we come to he and Sarah waiting, and before Isaac is born, is it Hagar that has Ishmael? And we've talked about this before. Okay, so Ishmael, firstborn, got a blessing, but did not get the covenant. Isaac got the covenant. And then later down in the lineage, you have with Jacob and Esau. Esau, firstborn, by, grabbing onto the hill and all of that. But he got a blessing, but not the covenant. Isaac got the covenant. So there you have Iran, which was Persia. So Ishmael, um, I'll just set his name in now, Esau, are on that side. They're on the Persia, Iran side. And then you have Isaac and Jacob, and they are on the Israel side. And both of them are saying, this is what it's about today. Iran is saying, we are the descendants of Abraham. That's the truth. They are. Our birthright was stolen from us. Both Ishmael was the firstborn, and then Esau was the firstborn. We are direct descendants of Abraham, and we have more right to it than Israel does. Well, and Israel is saying, yep, we are the descendants of Abraham, and we don't dispute that they are also the descendants of Abraham, but they did not receive the covenant. We received the covenant. Therefore, we're the ones that deserve all of the inheritance and the birthright. So that's what the dispute is, and has always been since the flood, between what we now know as Iran and Israel. And the peculiar thing about it all is that both of them deny Jesus Christ. Iran says, nope, he was just, a good guy, but we have Muhammad. And then Israel says, nope, our Messiah hasn't came yet. We're still waiting on our Messiah. So their war is not over Jesus Christ because they both deny him. Their war is over Abraham and who should have been given the inheritance. Okay. So then you have us, the Gentiles, and we're supposed to pray for Israel. We stand with Israel. But we do that because we grieve for Israel. We pray for Israel to open their eyes and see that their Messiah has already come and died for them. So, we were groomed that we just stand for Israel. And Israel's the chosen nation, the chosen people. It's biblical. And if you're not with Israel, then you're wrong. And it's not that we're supposed to support and be with Israel no matter what Israel does. It's that we grieve for them and we pray for them to open their eyes. And it's pretty much the same thing with Iran. If we're to love our brother as we love ourselves and as we love Jesus, then we grieve for Iran for the same reasons that we grieve for Israel. So it leaves the Gentiles, which is us, in the middle and what I'll call in the right place, because we've not denied Jesus. Now, both of the parties, they deny Jesus, but they hang on to Abraham. And I got to thinking, Trump is the peacemaker, the referee, the mediator, the deal maker, the chain breaker, I'll even say. I bet Trump is also a descendant of Abraham. And so he can stand in the middle of this holy war of these two countries and be just like them. I am also a descendant of Abraham. And then he reveals Jesus Christ for the Messiah that he is and the King that he is. So some of that's my opinion and some of it's just fact, but that's where my mind has been staying. What about y'all?
That's pretty incredible, Audrey. Wow.
So the Trump part is the hypothesis, but the other part, I mean, isn't that your understanding? I'm sorry, I stepped on somebody. Whoever was coming up, come on up.
I was just
I don't know why Pamela's cutting out on me.
I've got on earbuds. Let me take them out. Is it better without the earbuds?
Yes, I was hearing nothing. I hear you perfect. Thank you.
All right. So what I like your assessment and your theory. I have heard from different prophets, if you will, and different people, all saying that, the assessment of President Trump being of the lineage or the line of Abraham, like that. But I've heard that in truth, he is from the tribe of David and the lineage of David. So that would very much go back to linking it to the biblical assessment, back to Abraham, because it all goes back together. So I like where you're going with this. I find it very interesting. Do I know for a fact? No, none of us do. Right? I don't think right now, but it. I think for however you can trace back, as far as you can trace back your lineage, um, I like where you're going with this, and I can see where Trump being the peacemaker, being called for such a time as this to step up and to step into his role as the peacemaker, and and how that parallels with biblical. So that's just a thought.
Love it. Anybody else?
I appreciate you being so clear with explaining those all of those different groups and kind of their connection with Abraham, and also just you're explaining Ishmael and the fact that he got the blessing and not the covenant, and the same with Esau, and then linking Ishmael and Esau together, and then linking Jacob and Isaac together. That's a very biblical connection, and it very much goes with what we're seeing in the news every day with our Iran and Israel and their fight, their war. And I think a lot of it is narrative, but it's also, you can draw the reasons back to what you just described. And I think you did a very good job of delineating all that very clearly. So thank you for that. And I do agree that President Trump is playing a major role in bringing everything together, not just Israel and Iran, but I think he's exposing the corruption that's going on in both of those places, and the deep-seated corruption that has been, the Mossad and the things that have gone on in Iran. I think Trump is not only being a peacemaker, but he's also exposing the evil that has gone on. And when we pray the Lord's Prayer, we pray, Lord, deliver us from evil. And I think that's what God is doing, and he's using President Trump and a lot of other people to do just that. But I think what we're watching on a world stage is, yes, peace is coming to the whole world, but it's also coming with judgment and with revelation of the evil that has been going on right under our noses for so long. So we're going from darkness into light, and I think Trump is an instrument of that light and that peace.
Yeah,
Thank you, Hope. Yep, go ahead.
that was so well said by Pamela and Hope. Um, Throughout all of this turmoil in the Middle East, I've not really been able to put together anything that brings clarity. And so your speaking of that did bring a clarity that resonates as true. So thank you. That was very helpful. The Abrahamic Accords that President Trump uh, negotiated, put together, that you have to have a deeper than average understanding, or God had to have been a giant influence in putting that together. So it all kind of ties together with what we're seeing today. Thank you.
Yes. And I can take it one step further, but you're going to have to sit down and buckle up for this one. All right, here I go. All right, going back to Israel. Well, remember, their Messiah has not happened yet. So there's no counterfeit Messiah. There's just the absence of one. But when you get to Iran, Persia, they have a Messiah, their version of our Jesus, and they call him Muhammad. Okay, even biblically speaking, Muhammad did not live when Ishmael and Esau lived. He came much later. So what happened is they all of a sudden had a Messiah, and it was Muhammad. And Muhammad was just some guy that received this divine, prophetic revelation. And so everything that happened on the Israel side, they counterfeited with Muhammad. He's the one that did such and such, and he's the one that the temple was here, and now this is the Dome of the Rock. And no, it wasn't Jesus, it was Muhammad, and he was the line of the promise, not Jesus through the line of David. No, 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 no. It was Muhammad. So what I got to thinking about it, and this whole Muhammad thing is fairly recent. I mean, it's always been around hundreds of years that we know about, but it's not in the Old Testament. it parallels more with the timeline of our New Testament. And so I was thinking, well, this false belief of this Muhammad dude, now this is where you're going to have to buckle up. When the millennial reign occurred, any of those false beliefs on both sides, really, the false belief on the Israel side that Jesus hadn't came yet. Well, if he came and reigned 1,000 years, they realized their error. And on the Islamic side, all of those that were doing the Muhammad thing, when Jesus came and reigned for 1,000 years, they became aware of their error. So all of that would have been shaken out during the 1,000-year reign. Well, what happened at the end of the reign? Satan was released. So do you know who wrote the story and invented all of this bullshit Muhammad? Satan, when he was released for the little season. That's where Muhammad came from. Well, what do you think?
With that, it brings about the DNA over the doorposts on Passover, because the Muslim religion states they must kill those who don't believe as they do.
And that just proves no matter how much you study, it just keeps going and going and going and going. But yeah, I really, because I got to thinking about the timing of it and how really this Muhammad thing is fairly new, you know. And then it's like, well, how can there still be confusion after the reign? Well, there wouldn't be. So,
Sorry, Algie.
no, I'm done. Go ahead.
I'm just looked it up. It's like 610 AD. That's the year that Islam came about.
Yeah, and then you put 600 fake years and you get back to 0 AD. So they're covering up the whole Dark Ages. Remember, all of these crusades, all of these medieval holy wars, well, if the medieval Dark Ages didn't happen because it was actually the millennial reign, then those were made up. And so when you talk about exactly the date you just gave, 600 AD, that was smack dab in the middle of the millennial reign, right in the middle of it. And we know during the millennial reign that God says there will be no prophets. And if anyone claims to be a prophet, he is to be speared in the side and killed. I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but that's what it says.
No, listening to the video, so it's actually pretty harsh if we're not really following the Jubilee. But if we have the Jubilee and we're really following it, it's actually pretty harsh and pretty strict and pretty it's life is not, the whole thing is about them. Angels will be observing us. Our when Abraham was it no when Jacob was going mourning for loss of Joseph, right? So the angels were taking notes on his agony and all that. So it's actually pretty harsh if we're gonna follow. It's not easy throughout the whole time, and even coming up to.
Yeah, a lot of I don't know what word, just power and authority has been displayed, and we've not seen it displayed biblically, really, that we knew about in our lifetime. Not like that. Not like, the parting of the Red Sea and those type of events. But I think we may be the generation that is right upon witnessing that type of event, which is exciting. You know what I heard? I forget, it was like day before yesterday. It could have been yesterday. I was watching Right Side Broadcasting on my break at work, and they were waiting for President Trump to speak, and he wasn't yet. So they were just kind of at the news desk, and you know how they just kind of fill in and talk about this, that, and the other. The guy at the desk, if y'all were watching it, y'all may have heard it. He was talking about the 250th anniversary of America and da 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 da. And then he said it's a Jubilee year. Did anyone else hear that?
Wow. No, it didn't. Wow.
Yes, I did.
Did you about fall out of your chair?
Absolutely. I said, well, everybody knows it's all out in mainstream now. I mean, for us, mainstream.
What was the context of that statement again, LG? What did you say? He was talking the subject.
The 250th celebration of the United States. Is that right, Pamela?
Yes, it was. And he says, and as we go forth, we'll enter the golden age, or we're in the golden age.
That's next year, right? That's next July. So that would be
Begins
2026. So I got to do some math here. That's wonderful. But I thought 2025. Now I'm confused. But anyway,
It
so
begins now, Yoko. It begins this July 4th, and we celebrate for a year.
so it's actually 2025 July we start celebrating, but this is also this is the Jubilee year. So that's what it wasn't talking about 2026, correct?
Correct. That's my understanding.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Still sitting on it. We're still sitting on the. That's great. Thanks.
What if we
It's
split the
possible that
year?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Donna.
Isn't it possible that he wasn't really referring to a biblical jubilee, but actually 250 years is every 50 years, that he may have said it not really knowing what he was saying?
It's possible. I mean, I wasn't expecting it. That's why it stood out. I was like, whoa, I can't believe he just said that. But think about this too. we don't really know. We're presuming the year started in January. So when we say 2025, we say January. Well, we don't know that to be factual. We had discussed maybe it starts in September or October. So it could straddle the two calendar years. If the year really starts October 1st, then we would have October, November, and December in 2025. And then it would run through September 31st, 2026. I kind of have a feeling, which it could be wrong, it's just a feeling that we're straddling the year, that we're going to have part of the Jubilee in 25 and part in 26.
It's just since the October last year until now. So many things have happened. October 7th, our election, President Trump got elected in November, and and then moving in here, we just had our 12 days of war, and then I don't know, there's quite a bit of, it's very packed, a lot of substantial things, events. So it just feels like it started from last October. That feels like, well, from that, looking at it. But again, it's hard to pinpoint. I'm going to look up we have to look up the Jewish calendar to see when their New Year start.
Well, and I think about too what that Jubilee year represents, which is the rest, the freedom, and atonement, which I'm interpreting as being a cleanse. Um, so really, I mean, I don't know, just speculating, but like so far there hasn't been rest. 2024, Trump's ear was getting shot off and we were under the Biden regime. So that was not rest, freedom, or atonement. None of those things occurred in any part of 2024. Now we're into 2025, and things are going in the right direction. I don't think the ship is sinking anymore, but I don't feel, and y'all may feel differently, but I don't feel that the world has had rest, freedom, or atonement thus far in 2025. But that's just me.
No, that's what I was going to say too. It just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like the Jubilee year that we anticipated. I have anticipated that 2025 would look and feel like a Jubilee year because just of all the talk of taxes being eliminated and um, debt being wiped away and just all the different things that we've heard about that are coming. Just especially the debt freedom is what I'm anticipating right around the corner, but it doesn't feel like that right now. Just listening to the news, it doesn't feel that way.
But it feels like it's a coming.
Yep.
So if the big beautiful bill is a component of Nassar and it passes in July, then when would it be implemented? Because I think that's the tee up. Like you say, along with the rest and the atonement and the freedom, it's also forgiveness of debt in a Jubilee year. And that's why I think that's what that big, beautiful bill is. it's teeing that up to happen. I hope.
Well, and you hear so much little rumblings when you listen to the what's going on with the bills in Congress and the different congressmen getting up and pontificating about certain things, and then the headlines. You hear a lot about the land, like the the national parks being redistricted, and many of them being freed up, and allowing the land to go different places and be used differently. I think they're setting it all up for us to have the land going back to the original owners, the which is a part of the Jubilee year, along with the debts being forgiven and so many other things about freedom, the slaves being freed. I think that's all part of what's coming. And I do think it may be instantaneous. It may happen quicker than we even realize. But I feel like we're right on the cusp of all that.
Yes, and we all understand that we are those slaves.
Since we're looking for, or since we're expecting, yeah, we're aware of what the Jubilee is. We should notice it and take note when it does happen.
Won't it
Yep. But
won't it be glorious when the land goes back to to the original owners? I just think I'm just it's unbelievable to me to think about what that's going to mean to all of our country for that to happen. Just I think celebration and jubilee will be the word for it.
yeah, and I don't know how far that's going to go because you have to think about it. Like, what if your house is built on someone's land and they're going to return it back to them? Where does that leave you? Maybe it's not going to go that deep. I don't know. But you think about the USA taking the Gulf of America, Canada, Greenland. That would fulfill that part of the Jubilee. Given the land back, it could be more of on a national level. I don't know.
Well, and just that one move, just putting the land back correctly where it's supposed to be. And I think that's more what it's going to be like, all those national parks and all the things that are going to be granted back to original owners there. But you're talking about Greenland, just that alone, that disclosure is gonna it'll clear up so much, not only about geography, but about history and about um, timeline and when we learn about the difference in the international date line. I mean, just all of that is going to clear up so much for us.
Yeah, and maybe even expose a lot more going back to Bethel in Alaska. We've got the Bering Strait, but there used to be two. There's probably still two. It's just being, Google Earthed out of existence. But now we're going back to the older map with the camp of the saints, the camp of Jesus, the land of Jesus. What was it? The Isle of Jesus. All of that was over in the Pacific, in between Alaska and Russia. And then you got Canada right there, and then Greenland. So, just the redistribution of the land could also expose what we've been deceived of.
That's right. And I thought it was so interesting that you said Bethel in Alaska. Where has all of our attention been drawn to in the past couple months? Not only with California with the fires and everything going on there, but nobody's going to ever forget how many times President Trump said the water is coming from the north. He said it over and over about freeing the water to come down to help with California fires. And he said it's coming from the north. I mean, how unusual is that, that he would say that so deliberately? And then Alaska has had so much news, and Canada that becoming the 51st state. It just all of this, look over here, look at that, look in that direction. It's been it's been spotlighted for weeks now, and I think there's a definite reason for it all.
Oh my goodness. Did y'all see that article where the ocean has all of the different sinkholes in it, which look like little whirlpools? And it's over there. It's the water flowing from Canada down. Did y'all see that? All right, I'm going to get it. I sent it to my husband. Hold on.
Feel like I missed something about the land of Jesus.
All right, I'm just going to put these little screenshots on here so it's not just a link. Check this out. So I'll read it out loud in a second, just a couple of lines. I want my glasses on. Mysterious multiple water sinkholes emerge in Lake Superior and they trigger global scientific alarm between USA and Canada. Thunder Bay, Ontario. In an unprecedented and dramatic natural event, a series of massive aquatic sinkholes, some spanning over 50 meters in diameter, suddenly formed off the northern shoreline of Lake Superior. All right, so we're on the opposite side, but still. Have you ever seen anything like that in your life?
No.
I did see that article, seeing your screenshot on the wall. And if you remember, in the Great Lakes, they have been finding artifacts.
We lost you again on artifacts.
Hang on button, that's it. All right, some artifacts that they're digging up, and I read an article yesterday about a Viking type ship that they had found, that they are piecing that together, and they're all, for some mysterious reason, sank in those lakes.
I guess I guess they got sinkholed. Wow, what a phenomenon. All right, Yoko. Well, we're under the 2 hour mark, but over the hour and a half. So if you're ready to make your announcements about the holiday and wrap ups and line up your closing prayer, I'm good if you are.
Okay. Um, is everybody ready for? to be any more questions or anything? Okay. Next week will be July 4th week, so we're going to take next week off, and then we'll come back the week after, and that will be the continue with the Book of Jubilee full documentary, and it will be episode 6 then. And let's see. Okay, Hope, can you do the blessing, please? Thank you.
I'll be happy to, but I also wanted to ask Yoko if anybody else would like to pray us out tonight. I just wondered if there was anybody that would like to. Okay, I would like to pray us out. So you guys join me as we close. Father, we thank you so much for this time tonight. We thank you for the just the amazing insights that we've discussed, and thank you for the Book of Jubilees and the explanation that this person who we're listening to has brought to our attention. Thank you for his insights and his ability to summarize and expound on the way that the Book of Jubilees gives us so much information that we don't get in the Bible, and gives us a little bit different slant on things. And we thank you for that. We thank you for the way that we're able to discuss that together as a group. And thank you for each person in this room tonight. I pray your blessing on each one of them. I pray that you would just meet every need and bring encouragement and life and light to each person. I also pray, Father, that you would continue to give us discernment and wisdom as we do this study, that you would help us to be able to discern truth from error, that you would give us a keen sense of the right and the right way to turn on each of the decisions and on each of the pivots that we have to make. And I pray that you would guide our conversation and our minds, that you would give us the ability to discern truth from error. I thank you for Yoko and for LG, and I pray your special blessing on them. And I pray that you would just continue to guide and direct them as they lead this study and as they put it together. And I ask that you would multiply their time back to them, because I know it takes a lot of time and effort and energy to put this together. So I just ask that you would bless them and continue to lead and direct them. And Lord, we just thank you again for this time, and we look forward to the next time that we get together in a couple weeks. And we just ask that you would be with us in the meantime, in the between time. And we just thank you and love you, Lord. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you and good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.